Rolling. Please introduce Fell Harvest to our subscribers.
I am Joseph Fell. This is Liam Duncan, and we are 2/3 of Fell Harvest from Cheyenne, Wyoming.
What is the meaning behind the band name?
The band name came from a dream I had where I was wandering through a vineyard made of bleached bone and rotting flesh, and I woke up and I was so disturbed by it that I wrote a poem called The Fell Harvest, and that sort of hung out in the back of my mind for a few years until we were looking for a name for the band.
Awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about the new album, Pale Light in a Dying World.
Pale Light in a Dying World is a combination of music written across pretty much my musical career going back to the 1990s. Some of it is very influenced by 90s melodic death metal, and then moving into some progressive, some folk, and a lot of doom. We made the decision to record it last year during the pandemic just because we had no real other creative outlets. We had done an EP demo that we released right before, in February, March, right before lockdown started, so we never got the chance to play live or promote that. But we had material and we had some time on our hands, so we thought we could just rip out an album real quick in just a couple of months, and it ended up taking almost a year.
That's about right. How about the lyrics on the release? I didn't write any of them. You wrote all of them, so.
Yes. The lyrics were interesting because I had the bulk of them already written before we started recording, or at least chunks of them. Then when we went to do the vocals, I had contracted COVID and was very, very ill and lost most of my singing voice. I couldn't do the same vocal style at all. And I quickly found that not only did the style and delivery have to change, but the pacing and the cadence and even some of the word choices just didn't fit anymore with the style that I ended up using. So at very, very short order, I went back and tweaked and modified, and in a couple cases had to completely rewrite songs to make them fit. As far as the lyrical meanings, each one varies pretty widely. They go from some sort of philosophical stuff, Titanicide being about sort of what I believe is a natural human urge to usurp and overcome and destroy the things that we worship, all the way to Ghost of Scapa Flow being about the internment of the German High Seas Fleet following World War I and its subsequent scuttling.
Yeah, I remember talking with you and getting messages with you at the beginning of, well, we just finished tracking all of the instruments and getting messages like, dude, I can't even talk right now, I can't even get out of bed right now, and just thinking, there's no way that this is ever going to get done. And, and it ended up having to wait a couple of weeks, but I think in a weird way that kind of gave the album like the vibe that it has now. Is like that weird, we have to change all the ways that we were thinking about doing these things. So it ended up being kind of, well, it's easy for me to say because I didn't get COVID, but it ended up being kind of cool, like how that changed the process.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it was cool because it definitely sucked for me, but the resulting vocals and delivery really did have its own kind of feel, and I'm proud of what it turned into. I'm certainly hoping to do a better job on vocals next time around and not be ill, but I think given the circumstances, it gave it a flavor that is unique to the band and to the time.
Yeah. All right, let's talk a little bit about the album cover art.
Cover art was done by a very talented artist in Denver named Sam Nelson of Stigma Art. He was great to work with. I've wanted to work with Sam for a while. His drawings and his paintings are just absolutely incredible, and he has stuff on his webpage that I want to write albums just for that cover because they're so good. This one he did bespoke for us. I gave him the title track, Pale Light, as well as the lyrics, and sort of told him my vision for what it was inspired, and he came up with kind of a rough sketch concept and then fleshed it out for us within just a few days, and we absolutely love it.
Yep. All right, do you think it's important to have a label deal?
I'm answering all of these, so Liam, why don't you start that one off?
That's fine, okay. I would say kind of yes and no, and I know that's a cheap answer, but as an artist, I don't think it really matters that much. I mean, we could kind of sit in this room right here and record 5 or 6 albums, and they'd be awesome, and I would feel great with how we're able to express ourselves on those. But in terms of the reach of music, I think there is something to be said for having someone that isn't just two dudes sitting in the living room recording an album to like get that out to people beyond who we already know. So, as an artist, no, I don't really care, I guess. But in terms of actually getting that art out to people to listen to it, it does make a pretty big difference.
Yeah, I'll echo that. We don't have a label deal, so obviously it's not necessary. We released an album anyway, but the extra work we've had to do on our own, and we've had some good help with things like promotion and stuff, would definitely be good.
Yeah.
I can see the points, and that there's labels out there that I would release albums with. I also have some acquaintances that have had horrible experiences with their labels and have put years of effort into a release only to have the label go belly up and never put it out. But especially as live stuff starts to happen, and there's the possibility of touring and connecting with other bands that way, I think labels really do have a solid place in getting your music in front of people who are maybe more receptive than just the average person in your local area that you can throw a free copy at or stick up on YouTube.
Speaking of live stuff, have we had to postpone shows due to COVID? I mean, yes.
Yeah.
I think we did an awesome job at the beginning of, like as we're wrapping up the album, with getting in touch with people and setting up shows in southern Wyoming and in northern Colorado. And it seemed like we had a pretty cool slate of shows coming up, and they all just got wiped out.
Yeah, we were talking to venues about CD releases. We were talking to venues about doing some festival stuff, getting out into like South Dakota and Utah and southern Colorado, and everyone was like, hit us up in 6 months, hit us up in 9 months, which was really discouraging. Before that, I mean, we spent, like I said, we had released an EP in the very beginning part of the lockdown in February, March, and never got to play it. We never did a single show to promote that. So yeah, it's been almost 2 years since we were on the stage. It'll be 2 years December 28th.
My God. Yeah, and for a while there, I don't know, it looked like we were getting back on track, with like Bohemian Nights and stuff in Fort Collins, and then that got canceled again. I mean, just in the last month or so.
But, I mean, I was at a show last night here in Wyoming, so things are starting to open up again, and our drummer Angel's other band, Warcrown, just played a really cool show a few weeks ago down in Denver. So life finds a way, like Jurassic Park told us. We're getting back to it.
Right. Have we had any epic fails during live performances?
I wouldn't say epic. We've had some equipment malfunctions.
Yeah.
I made the mistake of getting a fun new vocal processor and using it at a show that night before practicing with it. That didn't work out too well. And then we did a show where the sound guy didn't know how to plug in anything, including our walk-on track. That also didn't work well. But that's about it. Those are kind of normal hiccups. We haven't had anything just fail so badly that like the show stopped or anything like that.
More embarrassing than anything else, but not like, oh God, we've ruined this night or something. So
but
I'll take that.
Give us time. I'm sure we'll get to it.
Enough shows, we'll have some good answers.
Oh, I like this one. Any new music that has impressed you?
Yes. I mean, for me, I'm a huge Tribulation fanboy. That was a huge influence for me in how I wanted the guitars to sound on our new album. So kind of since it's come out, I've been listening to Where the Gloom Becomes Sound. I think that's one of the coolest kind of heavy metal, like black and roll albums around. So that's been my main jam the last couple months.
My favorite of the past now 2 years, I think it came out last summer, if I remember correctly, it was Perfect Fucking Doctrine by Purification.
Dude. Oh my God.
That album has been all over my listening, driving in my car when I've taken trips, just jamming in the house. And I'm somebody that's not that into more of the old school trad doom, but that album hits hard, and I really liked it. Another one that I just discovered via YouTube was the band Astral Vacation from Mexico. Really, really cool raw black metal. New album's called Mantra Obscura that I think is just dropped like this month. And then another friend of mine turned me on to, I guess you would kind of call them a neo-folk, Wintergrave, their new album Elderwood, their new EP Elderwood. That's also gotten some heavy rotation for me.
Dude, purification, since we've started working on writing new music, I mean, that's kind of been the benchmark, at least in my mind, right? It's like
is this
is Doom, but
this is cool. Is
is
it
as
that
cool
good of
as
Doom?
Purification, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Those guys did a killer job, and that was the second album they released in 2020.
Yeah. Must be nice. Okay. Let's see. How do you feel the COVID-19 pandemic will affect the music scene?
Well, I mean, we've already seen that. There's been a ton of bands who've done virtually nothing in terms of live, but then people are definitely writing material. If you tell a bunch of musicians they can't leave their house, they've got nothing else to do. I think we're going to see some very interesting releases over the next probably year or two as people start being able to get back to their lives. The backlog of riffs and material, I mean, for us, we probably have 3 albums worth of riffs that I wrote during quarantine that didn't get recorded yet.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see a lot of material come out of it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's probably some bands that have called it quits that maybe we wish wouldn't have, or that won't be able to return live in the same way for financial reasons or logistic reasons, or they had to move for their career, or move for personal reasons. So there's, I think, going to be some negative side effects. And then the real just depressing thing for me is so many venues are dead in this area. Like, we've seen a lot of places that used to do live music that are maybe reopening as delivery-only bars, or and just maybe they'll be able to get back someday. But I think that's going to really hurt the opportunity for bands to set up shows.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm just a pessimist, I guess, but I think that's what I've noticed more than anything, is there's this kind of middle ground of artists and venues where it's you're not big enough that this is your livelihood, and so a lot of people got kind of left out in the cold, I think, when live music went away, and a lot of the venues in northern Colorado, and I think some in southern Wyoming as well, just kind of, either closed up or said we're done with live music for now because it's too much of a hassle. So that has a huge impact on the scene that you don't really realize until it's too late.
Yeah.
All right, well, Joseph, you're the one who lives in Wyoming right now, so can you tell us a little bit about the current music scene here in Wyoming?
It's interesting. So Wyoming is a very, very small place, and Cheyenne is a very, very small town. At first glance, if you look at the kinds of venues, especially the venues that are still open now, it's like that scene in the Blues Brothers where they go into the bar and they ask, what kind of music do you play here? And she says, we play both kinds, country and Western.
Yeah.
That's really the first thing you notice about Wyoming. But under the hood, under the surface, there's a lot of metalheads. Yeah. There's a lot of really passionate metalheads. There's a lot of people who really like heavier music. And like I said, I was at a show last night where they had a metal band playing. A mutual friend of mine is the bass player. And this is it was actually a horror film festival, but they just stuck this metal band on stage to, kind of ease people into the mood. So there is a lot of reception to it. There's some DIY stuff before COVID. We had been to, and I'd played at something called the Heathen Hoedown a few years ago with my prior band Craftion, which was just a bonfire in a field with probably 150 people or so at it. So there's desire, there's people who want to hear that kind of music. The folks who control the market for it are less receptive, but I mean, I saw Goat Horror play at a used record store, and people were spilled out to the street. The place was packed. So there's definitely people who want to hear it, and I'm talking to some people up here, friends I've made since I moved, about hopefully trying to do some more DIY shows and bring some people up from Denver, get more of a vibe happening, because people would come.
It's growing for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll go to the King Soopers down the road, and people will stop and talk about wearing a metal T-shirt in the parking lot and stuff. So it's a scene that's growing. It's a scene that's underappreciated. So I think that it's going to get there, but it'll take some time.
That's why you mentioned King Soopers. I was at King Soopers, one of the staff there, when I was checking out. His phone went off and his ringtone was South of Heaven, and I was just like...
Exactly, yeah. So they're out there, man. All right. Future plans for Fell Harvest.
Well, we're working on some new music. Yeah. We've taken a little bit of a forced hiatus from live, as we talked about. We had previously alluded to just a big backlog of material that we didn't record for Pale Light, but was still written last year or that had been lying around. So we've got 6 songs fleshed out now. We're still debating whether we want to do them as singles, as an EP, or push for a full album. Or write a couple more or add some additional material to that. But we are also beginning to rehearse live again with our drummer Angel, who couldn't be up here this weekend, but he's coming up next weekend. We're going to start our live rehearsal process and hopefully be back show ready to begin booking some things in maybe November, December.
Yeah, I mean, something that I thought was kind of cool was, at the end of recording the last album, I mean, we were exhausted for a couple weeks there, but, I think right away we were just talking about, all right, how are we going to do this differently and better next time? And so I think just getting back into writing music right now and getting ready to play live is an awesome place to be.
Yeah. That covers it.
Cool.
Thank you.
There you go. Thank you.